When I first opened up and I started working these fighters that came from next door, it was a huge question mark. How did these guys need to be trained, and what were the differences between what I was used to, which is football and strength and power, make guys big and strong and fast, explosive. That was really all I knew how to do, and that was what I focused on. And then I started training these fighters, and it was a whole different ball game. And I've told this story before, but I first got them in the gym and I started working with them. And I was like, God, these guys are so weak. They're terrible. These guys are pathetic. Like, if I just make them stronger, they're going to kill everybody. And then I went next door and I started training with them a little bit, and I was real strong, and I kicked their ass for about 10 seconds, and then they murdered me, right? Because I had no endurance. I was strong and powerful, but I couldn't make it last more than literally 30 seconds. And so that's really where I started to realize there's a whole different ball game between one sport to the next, and there's a whole different set of needs that one athlete has compared to another. So today we're going to talk about, first of all, what is the performance model, and then I'm going to give you some sample models of how you can actually take Excel. How many of you guys use Excel right now? This Microsoft Excel. Okay, some of you good. We're going to talk about how you can actually use Excel to create some models and to give yourself a tool to track and monitor and kind of see where one athlete stands to another and what they need based on that. And then finally, we're going to talk about kind of how to use that whole thing put together. So first of all, what is the performance model? Well, the performance model is probably going to be different to each one of you, because each one of you is going to have somewhat of a different take on performance. Charlie has his views on performance, and Patrick has kind of his views, and I have my own. There's a lot of similarities. We all see a lot of the same picture, but we're all going to kind of define things somewhat differently, and that's okay. Right? We're all going to have a slightly different approach to training based on our backgrounds, based on our expertise and our experiences. But the performance model is something that doesn't have to be the same thing to everybody. We can all have our different takes on it. We can all have different views on how to put it together. But at the end of the day, we all want to have something to compare one athlete to and figure out what they need.